It was very much like day and night, you know. The day before the governor kind of shut everything down, felt like the whole idea of COVID, like, it wasn't even a reality. It wasn't real, you know? And then it was like the next day we came in and it was just like, boom, our whole world had flipped upside down. There was really nothing in place, no like infrastructure in place to really deal with any of this in a smooth way. From a supervisor perspective, I have a team of 6 normally, and one day one of my team members had to be at home with her kid because her kid's school was canceled. And then I had another person who had to leave for medical reasons, not COVID related, but that sort of took us out too. So, my team of 6 was now a team of 4.
Last year at this time, I was scheduled to have a hysterectomy, but because of COVID and the mandate rules dealing with elective surgery, it was put on hold, and I had to wait. It was supposed to be in March, but I had to wait 3 months. It was scheduled for June 4th with some elective surgeries were allowed to happen. I had it scheduled to go into the hospital, and I was dropped off at the front door by my husband, who was not allowed to come in with me. I had to go in by myself. Had the surgery in the morning on Thursday morning, and I was by myself in the hospital with no visitors being allowed in the hospital for 72 hours. I was there along with nurses and the doctors. At first, it was very, very quiet, being all alone in my room, but I come to find out that on the same floor, it was also the maternity ward. So many babies were being born throughout those couple of days. So what at first wasn't very fun, being all alone, it was very joyful to hear the babies crying, and thank goodness for FaceTime and to be able to see friends and family and talk to them. But because of COVID, that's something that surgery I definitely will never forget. It was just a very weird and odd experience.
Well, the plain dealer, I think we need to talk about specifically, because they took full advantage of this coronavirus to lay off virtually everyone from the guild. And those who were left crossed over to something called cleveland.com. So the guild is essentially dead at the plain dealer, which means they have no ability to negotiate for wages or working conditions. And it was so deliberate. And this is where I got my start, as you know, at the plain dealer. And to see what's happening at this newspaper at this time when we need the information the most, there's still some good reporters working there. The problem is that most people don't subscribe to the local newspapers, and those who do are older, and they like to get their daily newspaper at their front door. So we have that as well. We really are going to need to talk about how we can fund local journalism differently.
Jonathan spent 27 days in the hospital before he died alone. But before he was placed on a ventilator, he wrote a note to his wife, which she read in the hospital after he died. In the note, he wrote what he wanted her to tell their two children, who are too young to remember their father. To his 2-year-old son, Braden, who has special needs, he wrote, "Tell him he's my best bud, and I am proud to be his father." To his 4-month-old daughter, Penelope, he wrote, "Tell her she's a princess, and she can have whatever she wants in the world." And to his wife, Katie, he thanked her for giving him the best life he could have had. And then he said this: "If you meet someone, don't hold back, because if they love you and the kids like I do, then I love that for you."
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're becoming crushed under a tidal wave of unfathomable numbers. By one count, over 1 million people have been infected worldwide by the coronavirus since this outbreak. Tens of thousands have died. Tonight, in a stunning policy reversal, New York City joining California in urging the general public to wear non-surgical face masks to stop the spread of the virus. New York City reaching a critical mass, paramedics now empowered to make life and death decisions that were once considered unthinkable.
Well, the message from officials right across the United States is that the situation is dire and it is only going to get worse. As you mentioned, the data that we're seeing, Heather, is worse than it was at the peak in the spring. But what was different in the spring is that those cases were happening in one specific geographic area or in a couple of geographic areas like New York City and the East Coast. Right now, this crisis is unfolding right across the country. I wanted to have you take a look at some of this data, including the number of deaths. More than 3,000 people died in the United States, according to Johns Hopkins yesterday. And then just look at the hospitalizations, another grim record. Right now, more than 100,000 people are in hospital. And that means, given that that is a record, officials say that we will see that death toll go up.
We asked for and received some great questions about COVID from you today. We'll get to those in just a second. First of all, let's take a quick look at the numbers to set the stage. Now, where we are right now does look better. Remember, from a horrific starting point, but things are improving. You see right now, 42 states in green means heading in the right direction. Fewer COVID infections now than a week ago. 42 states trending down, 7 holding steady. Only Nebraska reporting more new infections now than a week ago. If you look at it this way, the case trend line, follow the red line, 53,000 plus, 53,883 new infections yesterday. That's a high number when you compare it to the beginning or even the summer peak. But once you've been through the horror of the winter, this trend line starting to trend down now finally, 53,000 starting to trend down. One reason for that is masking and social distancing. Another reason is there are vaccines now getting into arms. 70 million distributed to the states, just shy of 53 million actually shots put in arms. So some progress being made here as the Biden administration takes over the vaccine rollout.
It has been organized chaos, to say the least. I have dozens and dozens and dozens of meetings that I have about COVID. Early on in the pandemic, when we were shut down and worked from home, and I was in sports medicine, that was a very weird and interesting transition because when you think sports med, you think hands-on, sidelines, taking ankles, giving out water, that sorts of thing. And suddenly that all became distant and virtual. And that was weird. And then as it transitioned into the AD role, it suddenly was, now you're making the decisions and you're the one that has to make the decisions for our athletes and our sports and testing and whatnot. So a lot of the testing for athletes, like that was me doing light work and whatnot. So it's a lot more stress, but athletics is chaos anyways. So this is just another layer.
You're in school, you're out of school, you're in school, you're out of school. That back and forth that we had was really difficult for parents. It's really difficult for teachers. As for the kids, for the most part, just what they had to do, stay home, be away from their friends, stare at a computer screen all day. There are going to be learning gaps. We know that. One of the big concerns was the different pacing that was going on. I have virtual teachers that are well ahead of brick and mortar, and I have brick and mortar teachers that are well ahead of virtual teachers. Virtual learning, I think at the beginning, the teachers took a lot of time to teach something, to teach the standard. But since then, I think they've gotten better, and I think now they're right up to par with where they should be. To be honest, some kids have done a really good job with virtual learning. They've taken it and they've run with it, and they're going to. Well, I think there's always going to need to be a virtual learning option for parents now. And we have kids that will sign up for it again next year, regardless of COVID, because they've excelled. They like working independently. You know, with the teacher coming in.
I'm delighted to be here and delighted to shine the light on the critical importance of addressing our mental health. So as we all know, we're coming off of a year of trauma. You know, the pandemic is obvious a crisis of a virus, but it is also a parallel pandemic of mental health in crisis. And what I'm seeing in my office every day right now is sort of the latest manifestation of the anxiety issues that we've been dealing with every day for a year. People are afraid to face the new realities of the new normal, even though we've been craving it for a year. It's causing a lot of anxiety, it's causing a lot of fear, and it's causing people to feel very vulnerable. And my message and my piece is this: there is a place for addressing mental health in the doctor's office. Mental health needs to be put into the conversation to be delivering meaningful health care.
We were scared. That would be the honest answer. I was in complete shutdown for 5 weeks. I opened up just before the Mother's Day holiday, which is a huge holiday for a flower shop, so that was really important. I would come into the shop just to do things around the store, just because I felt like I needed to be there. Signed in and watched every 2 p.m., you know, Wine with DeWine, they called it, his press conferences, just because the information sounds so scary at the time and you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. A lot of flower shops in Ohio did not close down. I think it was about half and half, but I felt like it was the right thing to do in the beginning. And then as time trudged on, I started to get, I guess, a little bit bitter that other shops hadn't and were delivering just like Amazon or pizza delivery. And so I sort of felt like that I was going to reopen and be there at least in time for the Mother's Day holiday, which was good because DeWine actually authorized the businesses to reopen around then. So I think we did the right thing. I think we were considered a non-essential. I do believe that flowers are essential for people's mental well-being, but you know, you don't have to eat them, or it's not like they're going to keep you alive. So I get that part of it. I would say it was just scary. You know, the last day that I was here before I was shut down for those 5 weeks, I had given flowers away, I had cleaned up, I had put all my buckets away, and I cried. I'm sorry, I'm going to cry now. It was just scary. You know, you wondered if you'd reopen or if they'd let you, but here we are.
And I had to record my temperature in this log, and I realized that it was going up every day. And I couldn't even go see a doctor and get a test, which, you know, a lot of people were suggesting, like friends and family were all like, you know, when are you going to go and get a test? But like the doctors were, well, like the messaging from the hospitals at that point was, don't come here unless you think you need to be hospitalized. Because at that point, the numbers were getting really high and capacity at the ICUs and emergency rooms just was like not there. And the first few mornings when I was home and I didn't go in, I think I tried to convince myself that I'm not really sick. I'm not sick. I'm fine. I'm overreacting. I could just go in. And then I would get up and I would start coughing, and I realized they weren't going to let me in. So stay home another day. I think at first I didn't let myself realize how scared / kind of depressing it all was. And then next week I just kind of let myself just wallow in it. And I slept a lot. Like the fatigue was really setting in, and like I would sleep like 10 hours a night or more, and then take like a nap during the day. And I was really like, I got really anxious, like about sleeping, because sleep was the only thing that made me feel better.
We cook, we serve, bartend, clean, we do all of it. I applied on March 16th, like right after we closed, because within the message that the governor is giving out and the way that the news was covering it was unemployment has been extended and expanded, and more people will be able to get it, and you should definitely apply. And all the people that I had talked to when I was freaking out were telling me, don't worry about it. The governor expanded unemployment. Just go file and you'll be fine. And then it was immediately kicked back that it was denied. And I called. I started calling. Didn't get a response back until hours later. It might have been the next day. After getting all my information, the representative there, the first thing she said to me was like, "You're the reason why I'm so frustrated right now. I made $171.25 too little in that quarter to qualify for unemployment." Right. So coping is critical, and the first thing is, as you say, we have to name this. We have to call this what it is. It's a trauma. So once we name this experience that we've all been through as a trauma, and we've all experienced trauma in some degree, whether it's losing a loved one to COVID-19 or losing your senior year of high school, we've all experienced some degree of loss.